I am the Cardi B of anti-racism, like for real.
This conversation is a departure from my usual content for sure, but I believe that achieving total health requires prioritizing our spiritual and social wellness too. As a mixed-race Black woman, I encounter racism every day, but I don't talk about it often in this space. That's why I'm opening up my platform to my good friend Sonja, founder of Black Girl Pilates. I'm inspired by her courage, her tenacity, and her commitment to Black women's health. And I hope you're inspired by this very honest exchange on race and racism in wellness spaces. So I'm not going to tell you that I'm very excited for this video today because I did that in my last interview and someone commented that they are sick of the fake enthusiasm on my channel.
Thanks.
But I am very excited. I am very excited for this because, wow, I've been wanting to talk to you about what we're going to talk about today since I met you. You are Sonja Herbert. You are a powerlifter. You're a mom. You're a mom.
A new one. Not a new mom. But a new powerlifter, that's for sure.
And you are the founder of Black Girl Pilates, which is the coolest Pilates organization on the planet, right?
It is. That it is.
Yeah. We met at an anti-racism workshop last summer.
Yes, we did. Hey, Catrice, thank you.
Thank Catrice for so many new friendships, so many experiences. But the reason for this video today, so many things. Well, first of all, I'm in the wellness world too. A little bit different. I come from yoga and then kind of the very white spiritual wellness world. And before anyone gets offended by that term, if you look at the people who are in spiritual wellness, you'll notice that it is predominantly white, usually cisgendered white, straight women who are leading this space. And for me, I've been in it for a decade. It's been problematic for me because I don't know a space that I fit in. So when I see things like Black Girl Pilates, I'm like, I'm not going to work out, but tell me more. Like, that's
I'm just saying, like, I'm not gonna go. I just want to know about it. That's it.
So exactly. So tell me, I know the answer to this, and I hope that it's obvious to a lot of people watching, but I know it won't be. Tell me the reason for Black Girl Pilates, why it needs to exist.
Well, the initial part of it was, and what I've said in many podcasts and articles before, was that I started it because I was fucking lonely. I hope it's okay to curse on here. Sorry. If not, I take my apology back.
You're good.
I was lonely in this business. And, if you know anything about Pilates or whatever that you see online, whatever your experience is, it doesn't look anything like me or you at all. Right. So I've been teaching for about 12 years. And fortunately, I had my introduction to Pilates was through a Black woman. So I thought to myself, well, why in the hell does our community not know about this? And I was taking Pilates from a Black woman at a predominantly Black arts school where my daughter attended. Cynthia Shipley, who was my teacher that I started out with, she was my daughter's ballet teacher from like 6 to 18 years old. So I've known her for over 20 years. My daughter's 25 now. I thought to myself, this is amazing. And it's changed my body. Why don't Black people know about this? And granted, the people who are in my class are all Black women, right? And so I had always had an interest in fitness, but I just didn't know what I wanted to go into. And so this was it. It just pretty much fell in my lap. So I talked to her about going to certification. I got certified, just to make a long story short. Somehow, and I can't even tell you really what happened. Maybe it was because everything that had been going on in this country with the innocent killings of, Black men and women and children. We had just gotten new administration. So I reached out to two friends of mine on Instagram, Mickey Price Havard, who is not, I think it's Havard, who is actually not related to me, but I think she probably is. And another friend of mine, Gina Jackson. I said, hey, this is what I want to start. Do you know some people that I can reach out to? So they gave me a bunch of names. I reached out to them and said, hey, I want to start the support group. That was all it was going to be. And then I was just like, well, I guess I better give it a name. Pilates Instructors of Color, it just doesn't do it for me, And I was like, I need it to be deliberate, like When you see the name, you know exactly what it means. So I was just like, okay, we're going to go for a Black Girl Pilates. That's what it's going to be.
I love it. And, you know, just very briefly, I want to touch on the difference between, especially people who are getting into anti-racism work or curious about being an ally, that there is a very big difference between Black people, Black women, and women of color, non-Black women of color. It's an important distinction because they are treated very differently and have very different experiences. So I'm so glad that you called it Black Girl Pilates. And I want to talk, you know, a little bit about, or bring up the feeling of loneliness and how that affects the self-esteem, not seeing yourself in a space. So I made a video, I'll like put it up here somewhere in post-production. I made a video maybe like 2010 or 2011 about, I think it was called like, Do Black People Do Yoga? And it was like Cynthia Shipley was on the cover of Yoga Journal. And it was a really, really big deal to see a Black woman doing yoga. And it was like, of course, Black people were in the comments like, I have a Black person in my class. And like, I know Black people.
That's not what we're talking about,
Right, that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about representation, not being the odd person in the class. Also, not just the idea of diversity, which means I'm going to have a Black person, a white person, an Asian person, or whatever, but really an inclusive environment where Black people are made to feel welcome, that they feel like their needs, their specific needs are being met. And that was not happening in the yoga space. It actually isn't happening in the yoga space, not in yoga spaces that are predominantly white or run by white people or white centered. So I understand that loneliness, and it's only been in the past couple of years where I've been participating more in Black centered events or where Blackness is pushed forward, that I feel truly comfortable and seen. It's interesting because every single time I bring this up on my platform, so my platform is, the audience is predominantly white and predominantly female, like white, cisgendered, straight women. Which is fine. I see that as an opportunity. I see it as a huge opportunity to teach, to lead by example. But what happens a lot when I bring up, like I'll bring up something like Black Girl Pilates. And just seeing the name triggers a very interesting response from some white women in my audience. Mostly the response, or the most common negative response is, why does it have to be Black Girl Pilates? And what if I had white girl Pilates? And why? And here's the real comment that bugs me, and I had to address specifically today, is why do you have to keep bringing up race? Why are you being so divisive? Why can't you just see that we're all one? And you already called yourself the Cardi B of anti-racism, so I want to hear your response to that. Why do we keep talking about race? Like, why can't we? Because doesn't it cause division?
Well, here's the thing: we didn't start racism in the first place, so it's just like I didn't walk over to America and just decided, you know, I think I'll be Black. You know, I think I'll be on someone's plantation. I mean, we were brought over here. We were dehumanized, demoralized. We were told that we were not human. So all of that's happened in the past, you know, that feeds down into generations. So we're here in 2019 with the same thing. It just that it looks different. It's really interesting to me. Like every time I hear that comment, it's the same damn comment by the same damn white person. Literally, it's the same. Why can't we be? I should write a quote book like, why can't we all be one? Why do we always have to talk about race?
We're all on the same side.
Right. Yes, we're all human. We all bleed. I know that. And I actually don't have a problem with the fact that I'm Black at all. I do not. You know, for them to say that, you know, why do we have to talk about race all the time? We didn't start it. You did. The only way that racism can be dismantled is with them, because they started it. So they have to be the one to kill it. We can't kill what we didn't start.
And I say this all the time about feelings, about things, issues and trauma that we try to stamp down because we don't want to talk about it. The same trauma, and I'll speak in, you know, spiritual terms here, spiritual wellness terms, so that people can understand. When we stamp down trauma, it does not disappear. It festers. it turns into a toxin that poisons our entire energetic body. It poisons our spirit. We have to shed a light on darkness for it to be revealed. And it's the same thing with racism. If we don't talk about it, it doesn't go away. And the thing about creating spaces just for us and why it's important. And I think what the backlash is really, and this could be well-meaning people. I'm not saying that all the people that make these comments are bad people, but they have inherent bias, inherent racism that's showing up because it's been triggered. Making our own spaces is because we've been told so many times that we don't belong in other spaces.
Right.
When we say, like you create Black Girl Pilates and a white person says, well, I don't understand why? It's because white people have never been told in broad general terms that anything isn't for them.
Right. Exactly.
Never.
And the first time that they're told that this is not for them, then they're like, oh my God, you know, there's heart attack season.
It doesn't
why
compute.
Why can't I be a part of that? Because the reason why you can't be a part of that is because what you represent is our oppression. So what you don't want to do is you don't want to bring the representation of oppression into a safe space. It's the same thing as if you have someone who is a victim of a crime. So you decide to start, you know, a special group for crime victims. But then, you know, the perpetrators or maybe people who have perpetrated people say, well, why can't I be a part of it? You know, I mean, you know, and you're like, well, no, because we need the space to be safe because healing needs to take place. And for you being there representing what hurt us is just going to open more wounds. We're trying to close those wounds. So if you don't, I don't even want to use the word allow, but if you are not going to give us the space to heal, then forever we're going to be talking about racism. And right now we kind of still are, because white people have to do their own work. You know, they, just like we have, the experiences of our ancestors have fed, you know, all of that has been fed down through our families. The same thing with them. They just do stuff, you know, and they're like, they don't understand why it's not okay. Why can't I use tribe? Like you said, why can't I use tribe? Why can't I use gangster, you know, on my t-shirts? Why can't I, you know, why can't I be a fan of the Washington Redskins, which is very racist? Because it's racist. You guys are the ones who started this, so you have to be the one to dismantle it.
So I'm not an indigenous person to the Americas. I'm not a person who comes from tribal lineage in the way that Native people to this land do. So I have learned not to use the word tribe, and I have no attachment to it. And the reason you brought that up is because I had a conversation about this on Instagram today, where a white presenting woman, so she looks white, I don't know what her ethnic background is, a white presenting woman was fighting hard to be able to use this word tribe. And like, I don't understand, this is just a word. And it wasn't coming across it, like, because it's hurtful and it's just not for you. And again, there's that issue of you've never been told that something isn't for you, and you've always been told that you can have anything, you can be anything, you can go anywhere. And I really love that you brought up the point of a healing space. And sometimes when women have, or white women have trouble understanding you know, racism and anti-racism work and Black spaces, I bring up the difference between men and women, because then they get it. So if you were a sexual assault victim and you wanted to be in a space with other sexual assault victims of women, you wouldn't want a man in there in your healing space. It doesn't mean that you hate all men. It doesn't mean that you can't live among men and love men. It just means that when you're in that space of healing and you're in that space of community around this trauma, this collective trauma, you need that space away from the oppressor, the person who represents the person who hurt you. It's as simple as that.
But it's interesting because it takes conversations like that, like for you to use examples that are that extreme for them
Yeah.
to get it. And so that says a lot too, that I have to use something so extreme for you to understand like how traumatized my people are. So I have to use like sexual assault and I mean,
Yeah.
and things. Why do I have to use those terms? And so even having to use those examples makes me concerned. I heard this quote from, and who was it? This guy he's like my David Banner. I love him. Actually, if he ever sees this video, David, I am single for the moment. Amazing guy. I really love him. But one of the things that he said was that white people they only understand two things: the taking of life and money. That's the only thing that they understand because that's all they've done. Capitalism is basically racism, and then the taking of life, which is basically what they do with Black people on a regular basis, and even their own people.
I want to expand on that so that people who are watching have a better understanding of what it means to even take life. To take life doesn't even have to mean to literally kill. It's to break
Right.
spirit. It's to
Mm-hmm.
appropriate culture. It's to take
Right.
something, music, art,
Mm-hmm.
scholarship, intellectual property, claim it
Mm-hmm.
as your own, and then move
Mm-hmm.
forward with it. To appropriate
Mm-hmm.
words that come from with
Mm-hmm.
cultural tradition and then
Mm-hmm.
act like it's no big deal. That's taking of life. Taking of joy,
Yeah.
creativity is taking of life. And
Mm-hmm.
it is our cultural consciousness. It is
Mm-hmm.
what this country has been built upon
Right.
that teaches that Black and brown people are less
Mm-hmm.
than, that they're less
Mm-hmm.
than human. And that's why we
Mm-hmm.
have to use these examples, because intellectually, I don't
Mm-hmm.
think most white people are walking around saying Black people are less than me or they're not
Yeah.
that. I don't think that they believe that on a conscious level. And that's what you have to unpack. That's the,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
why there's a necessity for spaces that are safe,
Mm-hmm.
relatively safe
Mm-hmm.
for Black and brown people.
And here's the thing: how many spaces, I mean, regardless of what space it is, how many spaces do they have already that
That's
we're a
the
part
point.
of? Yeah, that we're a
That's the
part of.
point. Right.
Why would you want to be a part of Black Girl Pilates when there's already 6.5 million Pilates forums out there that you're a part of, and that actually a couple of, several of the women in my group are a part of?
Right.
Our group exists because we're not represented, period, within Pilates. And Black women just aren't represented just as a whole. I mean, we can fitness, beauty, all of that kind of stuff like that. We're not represented. And then B, the space that we work in, all the studios that we work in, there's not that many Black people at all. And when you do see that many Black people, you're so happy. You're like, hey girl, or, whatever. And you're so happy because you're not there by yourselves. But the majority of your clientele are going to be white people.
It's the same thing in yoga. It's the same thing in fitness. It's the same thing in diet culture. It's the same thing in wellness across the board. It's something that I want to keep speaking to for this reason. I want to touch on, without going down the rabbit hole of white feminism, because that's a whole other topic for a whole other video. But I want to touch on why allyship is so important, and beyond the purpose of just being a decent human being, right? How it actually benefits white women. If, Black women, Black and Indigenous women are at the very bottom of the totem pole.
Exactly.
Of status in this country. Around the world, but we're speaking from the United States of America here. So very bottom of the totem pole. If I can use that term, that's probably like the wrong word to use. So there we go.
But
so if you are placing efforts, all women, all people, but all women, because my audience is women, placing efforts to help the people at the very bottom, and they get access, they get equal rights, equal representation, everybody benefits.
Exactly.
It's the law of civic justice. It's the law of social justice. Everybody benefits. But the truth of the matter is, and I see this a lot where people say like, oh, if everybody has, equality doesn't mean that you give up a little bit of your rights. It's not pie. But the truth of the matter is, I believe
Yeah.
that you do have to give up some privilege for everybody
You
to
do.
have some. You do.
You do.
Because you
Yeah,
have to
you
put
do.
yourself at risk by speaking out. You have to turn down
Mhm.
jobs that aren't for you. You have to turn down
Mhm.
positions that aren't for you. Even this
Mhm.
month, Yoga Journal for Black
Mhm.
History Month featured me as one of their
Mhm.
Black yogis. And
Mhm.
we talked about the
Mhm.
the fact that I'm very light skinned and I benefit from light
Yeah.
skin privilege. And the
Yeah.
reason why I ended up doing it, because I did want other people to understand all the many
Mhm.
expressions of Blackness.
Mhm.
But I thought
Right.
long and hard, like, should I be stepping into this, or should I step
Mhm.
aside and
Mhm.
let someone else do it? That was like a
Mhm.
big debate behind the scenes.
Mhm.
So you do have to give up privilege. I have to give up
Yeah.
space on my platform for other people to speak. And that's okay, because I
Yeah.
benefit from that.
Exactly. Exactly. And
So, what would your tips be for a woman in the fitness space? How to
mhm.
be a better ally, or how to be a better advocate?
I have struggled with those two words,
Tell me
ally,
why.
ally and advocate. Just because it gives a name to something that doesn't really need a name.
Mm,
Um, because I feel like you just need to be a decent human being. You just need to be human, and treat people like they're supposed to be treated. And so to me, when you're giving a name to something, it's almost like it's almost like putting them on another elitist pedestal. So
yeah.
you're giving them space to be able to say, "Oh, my name is Jennifer Ally, Malone." I mean, you know what
Mhm.
I'm saying?
Let me say this though. Because you say just be a human being, when you
Mhm.
have been taught, when it's been put into your subconscious from day one, right? From
Mhm.
day one on this planet, that humanity means white, humanity
True.
looks like white, right?
Right.
Then
Mhm.
how do you even know how to be a decent human being when it comes to being a friend, right?
Mhm.
Being a true friend
Mhm.
to Black and brown people? How do you know how to do that? Because your consciousness, that doesn't register. You think you're decent when you say all lives matter. You think you're
Right.
decent when you're like, well, I have friends who are Black.
I mean, that's true. I guess I'm just not much for the names and
Yeah.
things like that, because it just gives them space to be able to say, like, have t-shirts and stuff like that. Like, don't have t-shirts.
Right.
you
Like you'll
know
get a
I
badge
mean,
that says
yeah,
you're
there's like
an
ally, and
ally.
all that stuff. The first thing I would say is you have to do your own individual work.
Mhm.
You have to first, it's like someone who is someone who's an alcoholic, right? You have to first admit that you're an alcoholic.
Mhm.
And that's the first step. First, you have to admit that you have racist behavior. Now, some people, there are varying degrees of racist behavior, but at some point in your white life, you've been racist, or you've said some racist type of, made some racist type of comment, or you've had racist thoughts. At some point in your life, you have. You know what? We're actually throwing you guys a bone.
Right.
Like, hey, you
It's an
know,
opportunity. When you're called a racist,
yes,
take that as an
yes,
opportunity.
yes. Take
Yeah.
it as an
Say thank
opportunity.
you.
Yes. So, first step is acknowledging that you're racist. Second thing is finding out, how do I do something about it, and who do I go to do something about it with, which is finding, folks like Layla. Layla basically did stuff for free. you
Yeah,
know
and I'm going to
I
help
mean,
people who are watching in the video
mhm,
description. I'm going to
mhm.
put down, I mean, I'm biased because they're my friends, but they're my friends because
Right.
I've met them through this work, but people
Mhm.
who are reliable and brilliant and doing amazing work in this area of racial and social justice. So you'll find links in the video description. When I talk about allyship and all of that,
Mhm. Mhm.
there's the angle of, there's a recommendation, and I see a lot of people in my comments like, I'm listening, I'm learning, I'm
Mhm.
researching, and it's like, that's cool. I love
Mhm.
that you're doing that, but I want
Right.
you to do it with the urgency
Mhm.
of your child walking out onto the street right now and you feeling
Right.
like they may or may not come back.
Mhm.
Would you be taking out a book from the library and reading about it, or would you be on the street or taking action or screaming into the ether and anywhere you could for people to, other people to take action, dragging them into the cause? So I really want non-Black women of color and white women to acknowledge the urgency of what's happening right now. I want you to follow Black women because I have found, follow Black and Indigenous women, I have found through my own work, because of my light privilege, which is a very, very real thing, because of my light privilege, because of the opportunities that I've been given and the way that I've been able to navigate the world without as much oppression and whatever as my Black sisters, I had to do work. I had inherent bias. Anti-Blackness runs through all groups. If it's not racism, it's anti-Blackness. So I had to do my work. So I sit in racial justice workshops. I did 3 last year, plus the Follow Black Women's Conference. I'm going to be doing it again this year. My education is so important also so that I can hold safer spaces. And so I say follow Black women, because what I found through my work is that they are the ones doing the best work in this area. Buy their books, attend their workshops, take their seminars, buy their products, give them money to support their efforts and their organizations, and step aside. If you have an opportunity to teach or to lead or to be in a space where you're going to be centered and you feel like you're not an expert, and you're probably not, step aside and give someone else that space.
And that's hard for them to do. You know, it's
Takes
hard
practice.
for them to do. Yeah, that's right. And
important things are hard.
Yeah. That's true. That's true. Your job is to listen, learn, and then research. That's your job right there. But you also added another important point, which is you also got to act. You can't just come here. Yeah, you can't just sit here and listen. You can't just, oh, I'm here to listen and learn. You know, thank you so much or whatever. Okay, that's cool.
Faith without deeds is dead. If you can sit around and think flowery thoughts all day long, but if you're not out changing the world for the better and being that change in the world, then it means nothing. Impact is more important than intent every single day of the week. And it really, really, really is about taking action. And to drive that point home, though, of we're not going to see it in our lifetime. We're not going to see racism in our lifetime. We are planting seeds for trees that we will never see bloom.
Yeah. But
there are so many blessings in the work, because racism doesn't just hurt Black folks. It hurts the white people that have it inside them too. And as you start to break that down and dismantle it within yourself, when I dismantle anti-Blackness in myself because of what I was taught, oh my gosh, freedom, the spiritual freedom, the emotional freedom that I felt. It's like a veil has been lifted.
And you know what, even with you and I think Catrice would say the same thing, you know, we're all still working through our anti-Blackness, you know, and it was a tough thing. And every day I think I find something within myself that's just totally anti-Black. There's so much unpacking. You know, so here we are trying to unpack our anti-Blackness because we want to. Isn't that interesting? But you have white women who don't want. They don't want to.
We feel the necessity of doing, like, we have to, right?
Yeah. So they're like, they don't want to unpack their racism. It's like we're trying to unpack not even liking ourselves or loving ourselves as Black people.
Anti-Blackness comes from the same place, like colorism, all of that. Black people aren't hating on each other because Black people hate each other. It's because of the institution of white supremacy. That's why. And it really is, it's enslaved us all in different ways. And I really want everyone to be free from that, because I do actually love all people. I do actually believe all lives matter. But until Black lives matter just as much, then we got to focus on the Black folks. Like that's what we have to do. And so I get, you know, I do want to say one thing though before we end, because just in my own ignorance and cultural conditioning, I did use the term totem pole inappropriately in this video, and I want to apologize for that and just make the promise right now I'm never going to do that again. And and I'm not going to edit it out, because I want people to acknowledge that was not okay. But I want to leave it with you, though. First, I want to thank you because I think that you're amazing and I love you.
Oh, thank you. I love you too. You're like one of my favorite people in the whole wide world. I always love talking to you when we do have our little conversations by text, and it's almost like we're having like a conversation on the phone, but we're not.
And they're mostly joyful. It's not about this. Like, we're mostly talking about lots of fun stuff.
Yeah.
We celebrate Black joy too. But I want to leave it with you. Anything that you have to say, words of wisdom, shout outs, anything that you want to like say to the audience, keeping in mind that you have an audience full of white women right now that are here to hear your words.
So I'm going to make a very cliche statement, is that I have a lot of white friends. I do. I do have a lot of white friends, and those friends know what I do. They know about my group. They come on Instagram, they see my talks, they know that I'm talking to them. And I'm not saying that this makes them better than anyone else. Are those friends actually doing the work? I don't really know. I hope so. I hope that the things that I do say, which are not in any way, they're not feel good statements. They're, I'm sure, very, very painful for them. You know, I would hope that because they love me, Sonja, and they see what my people go through, that they will start to do the work because they love me as their friend. For them, there's really nothing to gain. It's really, for them, I think they want to feel like they're going to gain something from it. Like they really want to get something out of it. And what's the best thing that you could get out of it is being healed. That's all we're asking as Black people. It's like, we just want to be healed.
Thank you so much for gracing my platform, presence. Anybody who watches my videos and follows me consistently knows that I do believe in oneness. I really do. I do believe in the collective. And because of that, I know that if all of us aren't healed, then none of us are healed. And I really want everyone to keep that in mind when they're watching. And I know if they're watching at this point, then they believe that too, and they are going to take action. So thank you all. Check out the video description for all of the links, people to follow, books to buy, all the good stuff. Please follow and support Sonja and Black Girl Pilates because they are brilliant and she's doing brilliant work. And I will see you soon with another BEXLIFE video.
Yay!